Welcome to Aflame for Christ, homilies to set your heart on fire with love for Jesus Christ. My name is Father Joseph Gill, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport in Connecticut, and you've joined us on this Holy Thursday homily. So probably most of us watched the Super Bowl this past year, and if you did, you may have noticed the commercial about people washing each other's feet. And I thought it was kind of a nicely done commercial, but, the following day I was checking on social media, and most of the comments said, "Ew, that's gross. Why are those people washing each other's feet? That's nasty." On one hand, it really kind of shows how far removed we are from a Christian culture, where most secular people have never even heard of the story that we just read of Christ washing his disciples' feet as an act of service. But on the other hand, perhaps people found it so offensive because it embodies one of the least popular virtues in today's society, the virtue of humility. To wash one's feet is slave labor. Only the lowest servants were given this disgusting job. Now, in a few moments, when I wash the feet of several of our parishioners, I've instructed them to carefully pre-wash their feet so it's not an unsanitary task. But in Jesus' day, these apostles' feet were probably pretty muddy, smelly, maybe deformed. They may have stepped in something gross. So it brought Jesus to be the lowest of the low, true self-emptying. And there's a word in Greek for that self-emptying, pouring out of oneself. The word is kenosis. Jesus began his kenosis when he left heaven to be born in a stable. But tonight he empties himself even more, making himself a slave of the slaves. This really only prefigures the complete kenosis that he will endure the following day, being humiliated, beaten, stripped, jeered at, and left to die on a cross. Tonight he pours water on feet in humble service. Tomorrow he will pour his blood upon the earth in complete humility. So I ask you, are you willing to imitate this example of lowliness? Sometimes we enjoy spending time with the wealthy and the sleek, the good-looking and the talented. And if that's the case, we practice humility by cultivating relationships with those who are considered the least in society, the disabled, the janitors, the immigrants, those with no influence, no money, nothing that the world says is exalted. One time, the Catholic social reformer Dorothy Day was speaking with a homeless man when a reporter came up to ask her a question. Dorothy continued her conversation for some time before noticing the reporter and finally turning, asked him, "Do you wish to speak to one of us?" Despite her fame, she never assumed that the reporter was there for her. The homeless man and herself were on the same footing. Sometimes, in our pride, we think that certain tasks are beneath us. If that's the case, be willing to clean the bathroom, take out the trash, clean up the mess. Saint Rosanna Negusanti became a nun after her children died, and as a nun, she would always choose the most menial tasks in the convent. In fact, she was so effective that the abbess renamed her Sister Humilita, Sister Humility. She was given the large task, noticing her humility, of organizing the building of a new convent, but instead of telling the workers what to do and where to go, she would find the stones herself and build the walls right along with the workers. Sometimes, in our pride, we think that our opinions always have to be right on every argument, but humility urges us to look beyond our ego and submit our wills on non-essential matters to our spouse, our coworkers, our parents. But in this scene of washing of feet, there's also some other characters that have to practice humility, and that is the apostles. Because it's a humbling thing to allow someone to do something for us. It means that we're vulnerable, that we're needy, that we're not in charge of our own destiny. How many of us bristle at that thought? We want to be independent. We want to be able to handle life on our own. And how many of us carry this over into our own spiritual life, right? Sometimes we think, I don't need God every day, just when things get really bad. Otherwise, I've got this. I can live my life on my own with my own independence. But only a humble person prays, because humility recognizes that we desperately need God. We don't have this whole life thing down, and we're dependent upon him for every single breath. Humility is also the hallmark of the other mystery we celebrate on this sacred night, the Holy Eucharist. Can there be anything more humble than that God of the universe taking on the appearance of bread and wine? God, who created the very stars and the planets with just a word, places himself at our disposal to be loved or to be mocked, to be received with reverence or to be treated with disrespect. What humility! Can there be any more way for God to lower himself than to become food? And such a humble food must be the food of the humble. Proud and arrogant men have no use for the Eucharist, And those puffed up with pride will say, it's silly to believe that he's truly here. Or they'll say they have no need of him and they stay away from Mass. It takes humility to accept with faith that this is truly Jesus. But the only path to heaven is the path of humility. A spiritual writer once said, in paradise there are many saints who have never given alms on earth. Their poverty justified them. There are many saints who never fasted. Their bodily infirmities excused them. There are many saints who were not virgins. Their vocation was otherwise. But in paradise, there is no saint who was not humble.